You're 2 minutes into the Tuesday status meeting and you're crushing it. Every number lands. You flag the one risk that matters. Then someone asks what you do about the vendor delay, and you hear yourself say it. What do you think I should do? You think the numbers are what gets you promoted. They aren't. Across the table, your manager writes down that one sentence, 4 words, not the numbers, and it has nothing to do with the good news you just delivered. You might think this only counts if your manager already has you on their radar, already actively considering you for something bigger. It's the opposite. This reads the same whether they're watching closely or barely paying attention at all, because it's not something they consciously grade, it's something they hear in the background without ever deciding to listen for it. Most people think getting ahead here comes down to confidence, sounding sure of yourself when it matters. The people who quietly keep getting picked understood something narrower a while ago. It was never about how sure you felt. It's about the shape of the sentence you used the moment you weren't. Here's the reframe. Most of the career advice you've ever gotten tells you to do better work, speak up more, be more visible. That advice isn't wrong. It's just aimed at the wrong layer. This isn't a personality test, and it isn't a sign your specific corporate culture is unusually political. Any organization built on ambiguous decisions ends up scoring the people inside it this way, quietly, whether it means to or not. Underneath the content of what you say, there's a structure to it, a shape the sentence takes, and that structure is being read, sentence by sentence, whether anyone in the room could tell you they're doing it or not. That's the whole method of this channel. We slow it down until you can hear what's inside it. At normal speed, a sentence is just a sentence. Slowed down, it's a signal. Rule 1, the work isn't the currency. The sentence you use to present it is. You think doing more, doing it well, and staying quiet about your process is what registers as promotion ready. It doesn't. Competence gets you tolerated. It doesn't get you sponsored. The thing that moves a manager's internal ledger is smaller and stranger than your output. It's whether, when something is ambiguous, you show up with a question or a decision. Watch for it in your own last week. The moment you hit something unclear, your first instinct was, what do you think I should do? That's not humility. That's a data point. And it's being logged whether anyone means to log it or not. Here's the mechanic underneath it. The cue is any moment of real ambiguity. A vendor problem with no clean answer. A deadline that conflicts with another deadline. A request that came down from someone above your manager. The routine most people default to, the one that feels safest, is to surface the ambiguity as a question and hand it upward, wrapped in the language of being thorough. The reward is real. You avoid the risk of being wrong. You feel like you did the responsible thing by checking first. But the reward you're chasing and the reward you're getting are two different things. You're buying safety, you're not buying advancement. Those were never the same purchase, even though the habit feels completely identical every single time you do it. In every meeting where it happens. Here's the part nobody warns you about. It's not really about whether you ask questions at all. Plenty of senior people ask questions constantly. It's specifically about which kind of moment you default to asking in. And that brings us to the actual mechanism doing the filing. Rule 2, it's not what you say, it's whether the sentence has a question mark on the end of it. You think if you just present clean, accurate information, they'll see you're ready for more. They won't. 2 people can say the same true thing and land in completely different places because the grammar does the work the content doesn't. What should I do about the vendor delay? And I'm pushing the vendor delay to Thursday. Flag me if you see a problem. Contain almost identical information. Same delay, same stakes, same person doing the actual thinking, probably even the same eventual decision either way. One is a request for supervision. The other is a decision with a built-in check. Your manager's brain doesn't consciously sit down and score this the way a rubric would. It files it, Fast, the same way it files a flattened voice or a held breath before an answer. Not as content, as category. And once your filed asks, that's the folder you stay in, meeting after meeting until something specific forces a refile. Nobody schedules that refile. It has to be triggered deliberately by you. This isn't a guess about how brains work. The linguist Robin Lakoff was the first to name this pattern back in the 1970s, what researchers now call powerless speech style, hedges, permission-seeking phrasing, question framing that reads as less competent regardless of the substance underneath. Courtroom studies replicating her original observation found the same effect even when the underlying information being conveyed was identical, word for word, except for the grammar carrying it. This is the quiet part, the part people don't talk about, because it makes the whole thing sound almost too small to matter. A folder gets built off grammar, but the folder isn't the end of it. It's what the folder costs you over time that stings. Rule 3. Every time you ask instead of propose, it costs you something invisible. You think asking is free. Zero risk, no downside. It isn't. Here's what makes it worse. The cost doesn't show up anywhere you'd notice, because there's no line item for asked permission again. It compounds the way any repeated pattern compounds. 1 instance is nothing. 10 instances over a quarter is a category. And categories are what promotion conversations run on, not any single meeting anyone can point to. Picture the shared notes document from your last 4 one-on-ones. The same one your manager opens 2 minutes before each call to remember where you left off. If every entry under your name opens with a question, that document is quietly building a case that was never about your competence at all. It's a running tally of how much oversight the document thinks you still need, and nobody sat down and decided to write it that way. By the time a promotion conversation happens, that tally has been running for months, invisibly, in the background of every single check-in. Now, here's the part that feels unfair. None of this means you have to become a different person or start faking a certainty you don't feel. The fix is smaller than the problem, and it lives entirely in the sentence itself. Rule 4. You don't need to feel confident before you sound confident. You think the sentence structure only works if you've earned the certainty behind it. You don't. This is the part that should relieve you. The declarative with a check-in structure isn't a claim about how sure you are. It's a format. Here's what I'm doing, tell me by end of day if I'm missing something. Is not arrogance. The check-in is right there doing the exact same safety work the question used to do. What changes isn't your actual confidence level. What changes is which folder the sentence gets filed into before anyone's consciously judged a thing. This is auditory processing and active listening, the narrow thing I've spent years on. How people speak, hesitate, and respond under pressure. The folder gets decided in about a second, mostly off hedging words riding along at the end of a sentence. Kind of, I think, maybe. Does that make sense? Pull 3 of those words out of a sentence. Nothing about the substance underneath changes at all. The filing does. The other thing that happens is this. The moment you try switching the sentence, one specific fear shows up right on schedule, and it's strong enough to send most people straight back to the old habit within a week. Rule 5. Being wrong out loud costs you less than you think. Staying quiet costs you more than you think. You think a confident call that turns out wrong is worse than a cautious question. It isn't, and here's the part that costs people the most, because it's the exact fear that keeps the old habit alive long after they've heard all of this. What if I propose the decision and it turns out to be the wrong one? The answer is that the check-in clause was never decoration. It's the actual risk management, doing real work under a casual-sounding sentence. Flag me if I'm missing something means that when you are wrong, it gets caught early, by design, on a specific trigger you named yourself, and the record shows a structured call that got corrected, not a mistake that got hidden and found later. Compare that to the cost of the old habit, quietly accumulating across every meeting where you never named a call at all. No one remembers a single question you asked, but everyone remembers that you asked. The habit that quietly reads as not ready was never really about being right every time. It was about who in the room was willing to be the one who decides. So, what do you do the next time an ambiguous decision lands in your lap, and the old instinct, "What should I do?" is already halfway out of your mouth? Run what I call the proposal test. You keep the same cue and the same underlying safety you were chasing. You just change the routine sitting in the middle of it. 1. Catch the question before it leaves. The instant you feel "what should I" forming, stop. That's the cue firing, and it's your only warning. 2. Convert it to a decision plus a check. State what you're doing, then attach one specific concrete trigger for someone to stop you. A deadline, a name, a condition. Not "let me know if that's wrong," which is just the same question wearing a different hat. Something with a real edge to it, like "flag me by Thursday if the numbers don't match yours." The trigger has to be specific enough that someone could miss it, or it isn't doing any real work. 3. Say it once and don't soften it afterward. "No. Does that sound okay?" Tacked on the end to walk it back. The sentence is the format. Protect it and let the silence after it do some of the work. This is workplace psychology in action, not theory. The format of a sentence changes how competence gets read before anyone's consciously judged the content underneath it, which means the format is the one lever fully inside your control in that room. Picture the next status meeting. Something's ambiguous. It always is. Someone's looking at you, waiting. Feel the old question rising out of habit. This time you convert it, say the decision, name the check, and stop talking. Nobody's going to hand you a rubric for this. There's no meeting where someone explains the folder system out loud. The system doesn't grade your answers, it files your sentences, quietly, one meeting at a time, and calls the result readiness. But now you know where the real currency was hiding. It was never in how right you were or how much you got done before anyone else noticed. It's in the shape of the sentence you used the moment you weren't sure. You know how to slow it down now. So slow it down and listen to what's inside it. I stopped waiting to feel certain before I sounded certain. I give them the sentence now and let the format do the rest. If this is the moment the sentence clicked for you, write your version of it below. Not for anyone else, just so it's on record.